I'll see you next year where Pikmin 4 is my game of the year.
Was it actually game of the year though? 2023, another year in the books. It went by fast, it went by slowly. There were hundreds of games and thousands of layoffs. What a year, huh? This is my annual video where I talk about every standout game, movie, show, anime, book, music, or any media of any sort that I encountered throughout the year. Before diving into it, I know I didn't make many videos this year, and I will address that later in the video, so stay tuned. But for now, video games. We all have a video game backlog, but what about the backlog of a backlog? It sounds crazy, but it's like when you see that one game you'd like and you keep a vague mental note of it, but it's never a priority, it's never on the list of games you want to play. It's just something you can see yourself playing before you die. That's the backlog. That's what I call it, at least. And I finished 2 of those backlog games this year. One being Phantasy Star 1, which is a Master System game from the 80s, and the only Phantasy Star game out of the main 4 I did not own or play growing up. It felt ancient, but it also felt massive and expansive like no other RPG from the 80s did. Phantasy Star rocks, and I want to play more. And the other backlog game was Eternal Sonata. I don't have many words for this game, but I am happy I played it.
If there's a spy among us, wouldn't the
she said
in
it!
the dungeon?
She said it!
So try digging into your backlog and playing a game from there in 2024. I think backlog is a good name for it. 2023 games though. Maybe it's because I'm a Nintendo drone, but my entire media circle has been giving Tears of the Kingdom Game of the Year. And yeah, it's a great game, I had a ton of fun with it, I beat it in 2 weeks, and I love this version of Hyrule, I love this Link and Zelda, I love all the supporting characters, except for Yunobo, the depths are so dang cool, the sky was neat, the shrines are great, Ultra Hand is dope, Ascend is my goat, but man, the game's story was just ass. I'm a defender of Breath of the Wild's story. That game's story was meant to be bare bones and minimal, not high stakes and epic, because it's about an amnesiac finding his way through a broken kingdom that has spent 100 years adapting to a ravaged world. It wasn't supposed to be this giant epic adventure. And for some reason, Tears of the Kingdom saw the memory system of Breath of the Wild and said, what if we did that again? Except it's 10 billion years in the past, and with new characters who are really lame and boring as wood, and some of them don't even have names, and then they repeat the same cutscene 4 times. It's just... It's fine. I loved it a lot, but outside the finale, the story let me down hard. It also felt way too easy. It's not like Twilight Princess level of easy, but it's still very easy, and I really hope they add a master mode sometime in the future. Other top 5 games for me this year, Pikmin 4 is delightful. The logical next step in the Pikmin franchise I want Pikmin 3 to be. I did a whole video on my raw thoughts, and I'd say 75% of those raw thoughts still hold up. So go check out that video. I want to say this is my game of the year, but it lacked something special that I'm missing. I don't know what though. I need to play this more, at least 10 more times. Shout out to Groovy Longlegs though. Seriously, incredible boss fight. Pizza Tower came out of nowhere and blew my mind. Every single minute is exciting. Every stage feels fresh. I want to say this is my game of the year, but I'm not a PC gamer, so I didn't feel 100% comfortable playing it. Maybe when it inevitably comes to consoles, I'll confidently say it's my favorite game from 2023. Resident Evil 4 Remake was a non-stop joyride. Leon Kennedy is the best himbo. Ada's DLC story mode made the game even better. Both campaigns are some of the best Resident Evil has ever been. I want to say this is my game of the year, but it's a remake, and it doesn't reach the highs of the Resident Evil 2 remake in my opinion. Star Wars Jedi Survivor was another fantastic entry in the Jedi series, with a strong story, incredible characters, and the best Star Wars gameplay style in history. This game delights. Although it's less concise than the previous entry, Fallen Order, it's more ambitious and explosive. I want to say this is my game of the year, but 100%ing it felt like a chore, whereas 100%ing Fallen Order didn't drag on. So I really don't know what my game of the year is, and I likely won't know for a while. I'm sorry, gamers. I know everyone cares about my game of the year because the world revolves around me. But I sure can tell you what my favorite movie of the year was. Past Lives. Man, I was so hyped for this movie. There's nothing better than a good romance story. This movie destroyed me, devastated me. It's the fastest 5 stars I've given a film on Letterboxd. Past Lives is about 2 people who fell in love as kids, reuniting at different times in life. It's a story that reminds you that the easiest path isn't always the best path. I would recommend it to anyone because it's a movie for everyone. Oh, it's so good. My runner-up for best movie would have been Studio Ghibli's The Boy and the Heron. Miyazaki, the director, said that this would be his final movie, and if it actually is his final movie, what an incredible film to end on. It's a story filled with the inevitability of death and saying goodbye to loved ones. It isn't my favorite from the studio, but probably top 5 from them. Also, it's the most Ni no Kuni a Studio Ghibli project has ever been since, well, Ni no Kuni. So I think that's really cool. Barbie and Oppenheimer were terrific films in their own way. Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning reminded me that some action movies are actually good. And Across the Spider-Verse was, as expected, a banger. But in my eyes, it's not as good as its predecessor. A piece of media that blows its predecessor out of the water, though, we love Katamari. I played Katamari Damacy a few years ago and enjoyed it a lot. Incredible music, it has fun and original gameplay that didn't overstay its welcome, and then We Love Katamari took the formula and made it more interesting, added a funnier story with funnier dialogue, and had so much more of everything. It's a blast! Although the upgrades to the gameplay came at the cost of the soundtrack, which is still great, but just not as good as the originals. I mean, you can't top K Sera.
I know you love me. I wanna word you up into my life.
In 2012, 12 years ago, I decided to revisit 2 franchises that I had played off and on in my childhood, Metroid and F-Zero. This is where my immense love for Metroid truly began. And because I got so into F-Zero at this point in my life, I played the original for dozens of hours over the next few years. So here we are in 2023. I have 100%ed Metroid Prime Remastered 3 times this year, and I have 40 hours in F-Zero 99. It's a good goddamn year for 2012 me. Also, F-Zero 99 is one of the prettiest games of the year. It's just beyond gorgeous pixel art. Oh my god, holy smokes. I don't really talk about music outside of video game music all that often on this channel, but this year was a really exciting one for me musically, because what is probably my favorite album of all time got a 10th anniversary edition, Random Access Memories by Daft Punk. At this point in my life, I think Daft Punk is my favorite artist and has been for nearly a decade, and I was pretty heartbroken when they announced they would retire Daft Punk in 2021. But it's nice to see a new version of their magnum opus released this year with a bunch of behind-the-scenes audio and their last original song that was previously unreleased. And you know what? It's amazing. It's God tier. It reminds me of how great Random Access Memories is. 10. Anyway, back to video game music. Usually I'm a sucker for slower songs in video games, but this year, the loud and intense songs won my heart over. Like, It's Pizza Time from Pizza Tower. The whole Pizza Tower soundtrack is magical, but this specific song is chaotic and a blast to listen to, especially in-game. I can't talk about video game music from 2023 without mentioning the Colgera theme from Tears of the Kingdom. Would you believe me if I said I collapsed to the floor when I heard the Dragon Roost Island theme kick in during the boss fight? It would be best if you didn't believe me because it didn't happen, but it almost did. Final Fantasy Theater Rhythm took up my whole life this year. I played all 500 something songs in that game, banger after banger after banger. Highly recommend. And of course, I gotta mention it, Sea of Stars. So I played The Messenger this year, which is a kind of sequel to Sea of Stars. It takes place like millions of years after Sea of Stars, just the same universe. So I played The Messenger, and holy god, I did not like the soundtrack to that game very much. There were some good songs, but most just did not resonate with me. Then Sea of Stars remixed many of the songs from The Messenger and made most of them great. Glacial Peak is the shining example. I need to talk more about Sea of Stars. It deserves more credit than just its music. At launch, everyone was singing this game's praise, and now, many months after its release, this game has received mixed reviews from a lot of people. Some people hate it, some people still love it. And me? Well, I still hecking love it. It has such an excellent cast of side characters, exceptional music. Sea of Stars has one of the best turn-based battle systems I've played in years. And the world of Sea of Stars is so captivating. This game did suffer in the story department during the ending, and the villains weren't as strong as they could have been, but the game built a gorgeous and endlessly creative world. And I dig that. I think both The Messenger and Sea of Stars prove that Sabotage Studios, the developers behind these games, may struggle with plot, pacing, and characters, but can create an enthralling world that can suck the player in. I eagerly await their next project because I know it's going to be a banger. Sea of Stars may have stumbled, but it also did so much right. Look at me, I'm such a nerd talking about video games. I watch TV too sometimes. I watched the hit 2014 TV show The Leftovers this year. The show's premise is that 2% of the world's population disappears one day, and it's all about those who didn't disappear. It's deeply depressing, existential, and enchanting. I would recommend it if you can emotionally handle dark and deranged content. It's really good. But on a lighter note, Scott Pilgrim, baby. I'm not a diehard Scott Pilgrim fan. I never read the graphic novels. I saw the movie a few times, and I still fell head over heels in love with this show. The fact that they told a fresh and new story and made Ramona the central focus made this stand leagues above the movie in my eyes. The movie is still good though, but the show's better. As for reading this year, I began reading Lord of the Rings on stream.
Alright, where were we? The riches he had brought back from his travels had now become a local legend.
Okay, I only have a few things left I want to discuss, so let's rapid fire these. I watched a bunch of older movies for the first time this year. Casablanca is perfect, The Apartment is perfect, Roman Holiday is close to perfect. A Fire, a movie about a writer being an absolute asshat dick snot piece of garbage, is one of my favorite movies of the year. Please watch it. It's great. Decision to Leave made me decide to cry. I'm slowly going through Baldur's Gate 3 with my friends, and it's cool so far, but I know I would enjoy it a lot more if I were playing it single player, so I may eventually play it single player, but it's cool. I get to play as Ridley. The Castlevania Nocturne anime was sick as hell. I love it. Dead Space Remastered is lovely, exceptionally faithful to the original while developing Isaac Clarke's character. It's all I wanted in a Dead Space remake, to be honest. It's good. I beat every level in Celeste. A-side, B-side, C-side, and Farewell. What an experience, man. I beat Ring Fit Adventure. Now I'm fit as f***. I played Nier Automata on Switch so that I can bring up Nier in this video. Please play Nier. It's good. Have you ever watched the movie Interstellar by Christopher Nolan and from 2014, I think, and wanted that to be a video game? Well, you should play Starfield because it's okay. It's an okay game.
One of the most important RPGs ever made, Starfield.
I beat it. I thoroughly enjoyed the finale and New Game Plus of Starfield, and then I kind of stopped after that. But, you know, it's fun, and it's just Interstellar. The Kaguya-sama movie did indeed make me weep for hours. It's peak. Romantic Killer is a really solid anime. One of the funnier things I watched this year. Postman for the Sega Genesis, hello? Where have you been all my life? It's like Mega Man on crack, and I adore it. A major epilepsy warning though. And finally, let's turn the rapid fire mode off. Let's talk about the most important game to me this year, Xenoblade Chronicles 3 Future Redeemed. Man, in 2022, I declared Xenoblade Chronicles 3 as my game of the year. This DLC added so much weight to the base game that it bumped Xenoblade Chronicles 3 into my top 5 video games of all time, taking the spot of Xenoblade Chronicles 1. Future Redeemed was really good, but it could have been better. It's a magnificent close to the Klaus saga. It answered so many questions. I would argue it answered too many questions. And I loved seeing the older characters return. But the new cast and the story outside of the Klaus stuff didn't land with me. Matthew, Glimmer, Nickel, and Nayao are all fine characters, but they didn't do enough for me. And the villain was pretty meh. I get it. I get the villain, but just like, okay, I don't know. It was still a very satisfying conclusion, and it punched me in every nostalgia bone I've ever owned in my life. But it's one of my least favorite Xenoblade games, which I mean says a lot because this game is still like fantastic. It's just not as good as some of the others, you know? I don't hate it. I far from hating it. I do like it a lot. But that's it. 2023 has been a pretty okay year. Not much happened to me this year. The world fucking sucks right now, but hopefully by this time next year, things will be better. 2024 holds a lot of exciting potential for me, and I'm ready. I'm going to MagFest for the first time ever. I'm going to a Nier concert so that I can talk about Nier again in next year's video. And of course, more videos from me will be released. But again, slowly and likely in small amounts. And I do have the reasoning for that. And the reason I haven't been putting out content is because I'm making a video game